All right, it's the Lex and Pete show. It is Power Rankings 4.0. We are back. We are about 20 minutes, not even 10, maybe 15 minutes removed from the breaking news of Christian McCaffrey going to the 49ers. I think on its face, I think it's a very interesting trade. I think we'll see. I mean, I think it's certainly not a bad deal for him. It doesn't necessarily boost him how much, who knows? We do know how those Shanahan backfields are, but we've also never really seen him with a talent quite like Christian McCaffrey. I mean, we did see him as the offensive coordinator down in Atlanta. Devontae Freeman was great. Tevin Coleman, they had a two-headed attack there, but Devontae Freeman was definitely a top-tier fantasy option there. I think McCaffrey's definitely levels above Freeman. So I think this is going to be interesting. I mean, this is an all-in move from San Francisco. I think they're definitely going to be using their new guy. I am interested to see. I mean, is he going to be an instant plug and play this week, or is it a week off? I mean, it's pretty late. We're talking Thursday. That's zero game planning. But I feel like it's also one of those where it's like, let's just put him in for 10, 15 plays, just literally hand him the ball and let him do something. So I haven't heard any word on that. Pete, what's your knee-jerk reaction to this trade?
My knee jerk was like my first reaction was, okay, does this help him and hurt him in terms of fantasy value? And I couldn't really decide. I think it's hard to say because if it goes up or down for him or it stays the same, it remains to be seen. I can't decide on one. But I do think that he will play this week. I can see them throwing like how hard can it be for a running back to slide in and run like a screen? You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like flat, or just run a flat on a shotgun play, something like that. So I do think we're going to see him this week, which is going to be exciting. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting for sure.
Yeah, Stanford kid. I don't know if he's from California. I know his family's got history out there anyways. I know his family's got history at Stanford. So, always a little bit of a homecoming. Always like to see that. So will be interesting to see. I guess it's a decent break for Big Brain. But, I think like we're both saying, who knows how big of a boost that'll actually be to fantasy points. But, nonetheless, massive trade. I think it's a second, third, and fourth this year. And then I forget what round, but a 2024 pick as well. It's the third or fourth round, I believe. So, pretty big haul. I did see, I believe it was Rappaport that said it came down to the Rams and the Niners. Ultimately, the Panthers, they did want a first rounder, but neither of those teams had one, so they had to kind of settle. I think it's interesting about the market for Christian McCaffrey as well. I mean, it sounds like the Bills, there were those early rumors, but they were no longer in it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's more of just a wait and see thing. Just cool news. Always love seeing a blockbuster trade.
Yeah, George always used to say that CMC is like fantasy proof. No matter where he's on the field, he's probably the best fantasy player on the field. If he was still with us, I think he would be saying that right now. That no matter what field or team he's on, he's going to be RB1 potential. So
yeah. I mean, already right. I mean, we saw him take that. What I'd call a slight step back from being, totally dominant fantasy wise to just being a very good fantasy running back. He's still in that top 12. I believe he's still in the top 10. So, I mean, I think he will get a boost. I think we'll maybe see him, because when I say I don't think it's necessarily a boost, I'm more talking to the level that we're used to seeing him at. Not necessarily what we're seeing him at right now. So I do think maybe he'll have some positive regression back towards that. So, we'll be cool to see. It'll be cool to see. I love those Niners jerseys. Will be nice to see him in that. That's a very interesting division. I think that's a big miss by the Rams. I think that they're having a tough season right now. So I think they could have used that boost. So, it's always funny seeing two division rivals go at it. And was it necessarily the Niners wanted him that bad, or did they want to really make sure that the Rams didn't get him? Either way, he's theirs now. So, cool to see. But, we're here for the power rankings. I do have a statement on the Patriots quarterback situation coming after the ads. But as always, the Lex and Pete show is brought to you by Sundog Multimedia. Sundog is an online communications social media company. They were once just a personal tool that has since evolved into something much bigger, allowing users to communicate, research, and discover things that impact their lives and daily decisions. Sundog will collaborate with you to help build a modern yet nimble social media strategy by utilizing innovative and traditional media principles. Sundog is also a proud supporter of the Stop Soldier Suicide Foundation. You can follow Sundog on Instagram at Sundog_multimedia. That's Sundog_multimedia on Instagram. Sundog Multimedia. Brains, brawn, and true professionalism. That's easy peasy moving and service. moving, muscle for hire, assembly, errands, you name it. Easy Peasy is a multi-purpose team. If you need something, just ask. All right, so I'll start, like I said, with my statement on the Patriots quarterback situation. I think if you're watching the show, you probably have an idea of the conversation that went on in the chat last night. I don't think we have to rehash that. I feel like, I think both sides kind of came to an agreement. I think Pete realized that he was kind of arguing something that nobody was really arguing, and then he was also arguing an objective point, which was all that I was making, which was that you spent, and I'll double check the numbers again. Was it 54, Fab?
I don't know. You said you didn't want to rehash it. It sounds like you're about to rehash it. So
Well, yeah. I'm just doing a quick thing. I don't want to get back into it. I'm just,
all
kind of
right.
leading into what my point was. But either way, I think that we kind of, I think that argument, if you even want to call it that, I felt like it was a little one-sided, but I feel like it kind of reached its peak there, so we can kind of retire that.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to say is that, and I kind of want to clear the air, right? Because I feel like I had Mac, you have Bailey. Naturally, the two of us, we butt heads.
Yeah.
Of course, you are proud of your pickup. How much you paid for that. That's irrelevant at this point, right?
Right.
But I feel like what it's kind of done, this argument that we've had, has kind of turned us into, two families fighting. And I feel like that's exactly what people like, morons, I should say, like Mike Felger, DJ Bean, trolling Ben Volin. That's what they want, right? The Boston media, they love kind of trying to pick and pry and find some cracks in the Patriots organization and create some drama when there really isn't any drama there, right? We're hearing Jason McCourty talk about how the team loves Mac, they love Bailey. I mean, I think we've seen that, right? I mean, if you watch Kendrick Bourne's vlogs from the summer, right? You could see that there was all this team building going on in Mac's house. Everybody talks about how Mac's, a goof, how he's awesome to be around. People love him. But then you can also see that the team's rallying behind Bailey, right? And I feel like the two of us, we kind of pick sides, but I just want to clear the air and say, I love Bailey Zappi. And I'm a Patriots fan first and foremost. So the fact that he could step in, right? I mean, I've made it clear I despise Brian Hoyer. I lost all respect for him after watching him start against the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe 2 years ago now. I just felt like, as a veteran, some of the mistakes he was making, especially in a system that he's played in for so long, right? I used to have dreams of Brian Hoyer coming back, being our quarterbacks coach, right? Because that's essentially what he was in our locker room anyways, joining the coaching staff, being our quarterbacks coach. I want him gone. I'm glad that we have two quarterbacks, right? The fact that, our season wasn't derailed by our quarterback one, our 15th overall pick, twisting his ankle, spraining his ankle, I should say, and being out, indefinitely. It sounds like he's coming back this week. That sounds like a pretty good report now compared to weeks prior where he was practicing and questionable, but ultimately he was ruled out. It does sound like he is going to be good to go for Monday. Damian Harris also good to go. But, and I think you can speak to this as well, Pete. I love Bailey. I love Mac. You love Mac. You love Bailey. Whoever's starting quarterback for the Patriots, that's who's our starting quarterback. That's our guy. This is our team. We've got a very winnable stretch of games. Just like last year, I think we're going to go on a run. I think we're going to, meet the Bills in week, 12, 13, whenever we see them, but we don't see them for a while. We got the Bears. I know we got the Vikings coming up. We got the Jets twice. We got a lot of winnable games here. We can really climb up those standings, get back into that playoff conversation. So it doesn't matter who's starting at quarterback, whoever's healthy, whoever's playing right, whoever the hot hand is, they're going to lead us to a win. We're not going to listen to any of the trolls. We're not going to listen to anybody on the Boston radio and Boston sports media. We're fired up. We're ready to go. We're all locked in. We're Patriots Nation.
Damn
Can
straight.
I
love Mac Jones. Damn straight. I love Mac Jones. I love Bailey Zappi. I'm a Patriots fan first and foremost. Go Pats. Amen. We needed that. That was big.
Exactly. I hope that we can really rally the troops. I hope that this league can really come together, rally behind the Patriots, because that's what it's all about. I feel like, we're on a good note here. Let's just keep it rolling. Let's just get right into the power rankings.
Let's go.
I don't think this is bringing the mood down. I think sometimes it might. Sometimes people might see it as disrespect. This is exactly where you want to be. At number 12, we got Slippery Pete, the Land of Misfit Toys, Mr. Fab, uh, Mr. Deep Value. Pete, take it away. How you feeling right now?
No, I love those nicknames. I can get behind those all day.
Yep.
Mr. Vision, Mr. Fab, Mr. Deep
Yeah,
Value.
yeah, Mr. Vision. Yep, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
There's not, I don't know, there's not much to talk about here. I'm starting the guys. I can see the guys. I can see them. I'm starting them when I should be starting them. But you guys were right. My team, I have the ability to start these guys for a reason. Not much to talk about here. I feel pretty good having the picks locked up 1 through 3. Kind of feel like I got those locked in. I'm banking on those at this point. And then Jalot, he's really fallen off. I mean, we'll get to his team, but I'm thinking he's going to be the 1-6 or the 1-5 if I'm lucky. So I'm definitely feeling good about having 4 in the top 6, 1 through 3 locked up. And I'm just scouting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it there. I mean, there's not really much to say. Of course, with the way that your team's set up, you do have your receivers. You do have, it looks like you're starting to at the very least, round out a bench with some of these guys that you're picking up. You're finding yourself some depth, some bye week fill-ins for the future. Of course, you have Deshaun waiting in the wings. Then you have all these picks that you're sitting on as well. But yeah, I mean, you continue to trying to think of how to word it, but I guess you just continue to really build your lead for this 1-1. I think you're locked in there. And then of course you're waiting to see how these other ones play out. But yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much everything that needs to be said has been said about your team. You're here at number 12. You've been here the whole time. I don't see you moving there. So we can keep it moving. These next 2, I can just read them together because these first 3 have been no change from the last power rankings. At 11 is Waukesha. At 10 is the Slow Stroke Kings. We are seeing, I do think, and I think we discussed this last time on the power rankings, although I'm currently ranked with Amaral, we are kind of on different tiers. My team is starting to come back. Tua's back. Mac is back. Davis Mills is off his bye week. DeAndre Swift looks like he's coming back this week. So a lot of my injuries that were kind of holding me down, those might have put me in a hole for the rest of the season, but I can still see myself moving up in these power rankings just based on how I could finish out this year starting now. I think it's safe to say that I'm out of the playoff race. It would really take some true miracles to get there, but I think I could still be a pretty good spoiler. I'm a team that's going to be sitting around 100 points a week, at least by projections. So I think I can play a decent spoiler here. I think I can make some noise late in the season, really build some momentum going into next year. I don't know. I mean, I've been looking at some moves that I could make, some big, some small. I think there are definitely some pieces I can move. But, right now with where it stands, I think we're seeing Amaral and Waukesha kind of, really just regress and kind of get into that, hole. I'm pulling up his scores from the last few weeks. I mean, 97.26. Can you hear that train?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, yeah, I live close to the train station now. So, Amaral started off, decent at the beginning of the season, right? 97 points, 96 points, almost 97 there. But then he went 83.5, a just totally abysmal 39.68. Bounced back with 88.9, and then came back last week with 50.7. I think that there's a clear difference between his team and mine. Mine was very much circumstantial based on the injuries, and I'm getting those guys back. So I think I have a chance to climb, but I think it's you locked in at 12, Amaral locked in at 11. I'm not ready to lock myself in at 10, but I have quite a stranglehold in that 10 spot. But based on 11 and 10, Pete, what do you think about these two teams? You got any comments on them?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Amaral, not much to say about Amaral. Like I think I said it two weeks ago on the Power Ranking show. He is who we thought he is. Like you got handed the dumpster fire, it's still a dumpster fire. He is who we thought he is who we thought he is. He is who we thought he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sneaky thing about Amaral, I think, is Lockett. You put Lockett on the block, I think this week or late last week. Wide receiver 13 right now, 30 years old, and still churning out numbers. With Geno at quarterback, you got to imagine he's gonna have a rookie quarterback next year, so still gonna have 1 or 2 productive years here. I think he's a sneaky sell for Amaral and could definitely help out a contending team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's kind of running into. I kind of call it the Jarvis Landry conundrum, and I think right now Lockett is way above Jarvis Landry, but I think it's just kind of the idea of you have these productive players, but they're just getting up there in age, whether it's
Right.
late 20s or, Lockett is now what, he's in his 30s
30.
now, right?
30.
And people just see that in this dynasty league, and we've talked about it on the show before, where people have no interest in trading for depth, and then they see that they have their starting lineup, and teams they you know I was talking to a team today where I was trying to trade away players that I think could really be a boost to some teams that are looking to make a playoff push in terms of depth, and they don't want to give up their picks, and it's like, all right, so what are you playing for then? Are you just
Right.
looking to stay in the middle? And I feel like that's kind of the issue with Tyler Lockett. It's like, what's his price, and what's Amaral going to sell him for? And I think that that's something where Amaral maybe has to be a little more proactive and just say, hey, if somebody gives me a second rounder for him,
Yeah. Throw it in the
whether it's
chat.
this year
Throw
or
it in the
something,
chat.
do that, because all of a sudden somebody might jump on it. But some people might see that and be like, wide receiver 13, he might be looking for too much. They might not even bother making an offer. And
Right.
I
Right.
feel like it's kind
You
of the
gotta
issue.
sell them.
I do think, the value is undeniable. And, double digit points in 4 straight weeks between weeks 2 and 5. Obviously, a little bit of a step back last week, but yeah, Lockett's all, the value's been there. He was very good last year too. And he's been very good every year pretty much of his career. So, it'll be interesting to see what types of move Amaral, wants to make. But yeah, let's not spend too much time on this, because this next one is a team that we were just talking about in the 9 spot, dropping 3 spots from the last power rankings. That is the most athletic Suns. So that's the team that you were saying, you see them, maybe being in that 1.5, 1.6 range. I don't have the numbers in front of me as far as where they are, for max points for in the lottery, but, I see them just dropping more and more. This is a team, and this is kind of what we're talking about, what we always talk about with them, where they're kind of walking on eggshells, right? They need to be completely healthy. And then they also need those completely healthy players to be putting out, max effort every week. And that's, because then they're capable of beating teams. But now all of a sudden we're seeing the bye weeks kick in. And I don't think it's any coincidence that week 5 and week 6, when the bye weeks started, and I don't even know how much they were affected by the bye weeks. I just don't think it's much of a coincidence that all of a sudden bye weeks come into play. They put up 75.2 points and then 61.16 points, both losses. Losers are 3 straight, lost 4 of their last 5, I should say. Things are not looking good for the Suns. Let's see. I'm pulling them up right now. They got Robbie Anderson as their wide receiver 2 this week. Robbie Anderson at 0 points. I think it's an interesting fit for him in Arizona. I just feel like, if you're a team that has to start Robbie Anderson, who just got traded after he got in the face of his wide receiver coach, was asked to leave the game, and then was immediately traded, to then start him in his first game on Thursday night, short week with his new team, your team's in some serious pain. Clyde, he seems like he's coming back down to earth a little bit with his points, 5 points, 3.3 points. Of course, that was against Buffalo. That is a good defense. But Tom Brady, what the hell's going on with the Bucks? Dak is coming back. That could be a little bit of a boost, but Tevin Coleman's also in that starting lineup. So this is a very, this is a team that's in some serious pain. They were the team that I was talking to. I was trying to, maybe flip them some players that I felt like could boost their lineup, but right now they're kind of viewing it as they need those picks. They're regretting trading those picks, all those seconds that they gave to me last during the rookie draft. They're kind of wishing that they kept them at this point. But this is kind of what we've become used to with the most athletic Suns, right? They're kind of in limbo. They're that team that seems to always be stuck in the middle, and they can't really decide if they want to make that push or if they want to just commit to a rebuild. So instead, they just do nothing. And this is kind of where they end up. So that's 3 spots that they dropped to number 9. Pete, you do hold their pick. How are you feeling about them right now?
Yeah, I feel good about it. In terms of max points for, they would be 1.5 right now, with Wallace at the 1.6.
Yeah.
Absolutely fell off in the last 2 weeks. I was right about CEH. We talked about Clyde 2 weeks ago and said that he had a ton of touchdowns and was holding like a good running back one position. And then touchdowns fell off and he didn't do anything. So he's dead. He's a fraud. I called it. Very happy about that. James Conner went out. Also TD regression from last year. We talked about that going into the season, I think. Cordell Patterson on the IR. The only bright spot for this team, Waller's hurt, Brady's slow start. The only bright spot for this team is it seems like ETN has taken over the Jaguars backfield. So that's some at least good youth there. They will get Dak back this week, but I feel good about having this team back. I think they're out of the playoff race. Like you said they regretted it. So I think they kind of see that too. And what do you think, if this team does decide to be a seller at the deadline, they could really shake things up. they could sell Brady, Waller, Cooks, and then if they really wanted to cut deep, they could sell Kamara. So I don't know. I think this team is out of the playoffs. I think they're going to become a seller, and they could shake things up.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is kind of what I mean, at least I know I've been warning them of, which is, what can they really get for Waller right now? He's been horrible. I mean,
Horrible.
he put
No,
up 3.7, 3.9, 0 points. He left that Kansas City game with an injury. And then now, they're coming off the bye week. So maybe that's, that type of rest could be something that, he needed to bounce back. But at this point, Waller, Brady, those are two guys that are aging players that, we warned them, hey, you should be looking to move them. They held on to them, and it looks like they might be left holding the bag on guys like this. I mean, I feel like Kamara is definitely a valuable asset that they could be looking to sell, but I also know that Angelo loves Kamara. He
yeah, they
also
don't.
loves CeeDee Lamb. He loves ETN. He loves Brandon Cooks. These are guys that they could be looking to sell, but he's also so attached to them that he'd rather hold on to them. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it does kind of just sound like a broken record where how many times do I have to say, if I had this team, I would have been selling yesterday, the day before,
Yeah.
5 years ago, I would have been looking to make trades right now. And
What's
now
the
they're
deal?
kind
Like,
of
can they
stuck
just
holding on
not
these
pull the
guys.
trigger?
So what's that?
Can they just not pull the trigger on anything?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's, they're not necessarily looking or what. I mean, when I was talking to them, so, I feel like it's no secret that I'm looking to move guys like Miles Sanders, maybe even a David Montgomery. I think Miles Sanders is definitely the guy I'm looking to move.
You put them both on the block.
What's that?
You put them both on the block.
Yeah, and then even a guy like Curtis Samuel, right? Because I have Drake London, I got Traylon Burks, I got Elijah Moore, I got these young receivers. So it's like if I can find some value, for a contending team to look for a guy like Curtis Samuel, then of course I'd look to flip him because Sanders and Samuel are two guys that I got just for a second round pick, right? So if I can get some value out of that, I'd look to move him. So I hit up this team because I figured, hey, you're starting Tevin Coleman, you're starting Robbie Anderson, maybe you are a team that would look to slot these guys in. And we got the RB10. I think Curtis Samuel is wide receiver 20, 22 in that range. That's a very useful player. And both guys 25, 26. I was looking at these second rounders. They were talking about, I don't know, what could you be looking to move? And it's like, they don't want to move any other guys. Not that I'd be looking for Kamara, not that I'd be looking for CD, but even I said, oh, what about Clyde? And they said, I don't know about Clyde. It's like, so what do you, I guess my question for them and, my homework assignment for them is, what are your goals? What are you looking to do? Maybe sit down, write something down, the pros and the cons of your team, figure out where you're at. But you got to pick a direction at some point. And, I feel like they're starting to reach that breaking point. If they don't do it very soon, then they couldn't run into some serious issues moving forward. But, that's the most athletic Suns, ranked number 9, dropped 3 spots. Like I said, we're starting to sound like a broken record at this point.
You're right.
Please sell. Please sell. Or go all in. Please buy.
Yeah, true.
Do something.
Something.
That's
Do
all.
something.
That's all. Something. Buy, sell, whatever the hell you want to do. Pick a direction and stick to it. All right, number 8, no change from the last rankings. I feel like this is a team that's like it's kind of hard to gauge where they're at. And we had him on the show last week, and I feel like he's kind of in that same spot where he's like, well, where I'm at, I might as well try and make that push for the playoffs. And if not, I got my first round pick. Number 8 team. I love my mom. We got Wallace. Pete, what are your thoughts on where Wallace stands right now? Do you feel like do you think he should have moved either up or down?
No, it seems the same spot. I mean, we deep dove his team last week. He was on here. Coming out of that, I'm just saying he's pretty much a spot where he's not trying to win. He's not trying to lose. He's happy with his young talent. He doesn't have old aging pieces that he needs to move. And he's where he is. He's 13 points out of a playoff spot. So he's right there. He's got a very, very sneaky matchup this week versus 2 Pins, who has Diggs, Cup, and Devonta Smith on a bye. And Nick's team doesn't really have too many buys this week. So sneaky matchup this week, 13 points out of playoff spot. I think he could sneak in there next week. One last thing I had about Nick was 641 points for, 648 max points for. I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Or he just has a bunch of bums that don't, it's an easy call every time.
Yeah, pretty much. I think, pretty much that just tells me that the lineup speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I would have liked to bump him up, but, just looking at the last 2 weeks, 84.74 points, 90.6 points. I think compared to the teams, I'd really say the 2 teams that are in front of him, They just had better weeks down the stretch, and I just felt like, this was a little bit of a step back for him. So I kept him, he stayed put. But like you said, 13 points out of the playoff spot, still very much in play. I just feel like the two teams that are also fighting for that sixth spot, are a little more powerful in these power rankings. So we'll just get into them. So number 7, moving up 2 spots from the last ranking, we got, what does he go by now? Carson Wentz.
Lightning McQueen.
Laughing emoji, laughing emoji, laughing emoji. Lightning McQueen himself.
My boy McMurrow.
95.56 points last week, but the week before that, 150.9. I feel like Morrow's kind of starting to get a little bit more back into the fold here. I think it's kind of the same team that we saw last year. It's still competitive, not as dominant as 2 years ago, but as long as that team stays healthy, he's got Derrick Henry, he's got the running backs. He's getting a little bit of a boost. His quarterbacks, they just somehow find a way to not be as bad as we all think they are. Daniel Jones, he's not putting up the big numbers. He is playing some winning football. Carson Wentz is hurt now. Kirk Cousins is on a bye this week. Mariota's, he's a little shaky, but at the same time, he's starting to figure it out. I mean, a huge rushing week. He's flashing a lot of rushing upside, which is carrying him, because the way the Falcons are playing right now, they're I don't know what their record is right now. What are they? Probably 2-4, but they are covered. They haven't lost against the spread yet. They're playing competitive football, and I feel like they've kind of found their brand where it's hurting. Guys like we've seen, Pitts has not been having a big season. Drake London, he's been consistent, but he's not exploding for these huge games, and that's because they're not throwing the ball a lot. And I think that's kind of what they figured out, that the less Mariota throws, maybe the more efficient he can be, the more cerebral he can be with his decision making. And, he threw the ball 14 times last week, but he ran it 6 times for 50 yards, scored a touchdown, also threw for 2 touchdowns. So he's starting to figure out ways to put up those points and be effective. And, I don't know how much that, what that means for his fantasy upside this year. But, right now it's keeping him afloat. It's doing enough. Kirk Cousins is always, in that, QB 12 to QB 10 range. So the quarterbacks do keep him in it. Having to start Zeke and Pollard isn't the sexiest option, but this is a team that it's competitive compared to the competition for that 6th spot. They're just as good as any of these other teams. So, McMorrow is going to stay in that hunt for foreseeable future. And I feel like he's kind of started to pick it up these last 2 weeks. Pete, what do you think about McMorrow jumping 2 spots and being ranked number 7?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of ripped McMorrow the last 4 weeks, or really the entire season, saying that he's got these aging, decrepit running backs he needs to sell. Maybe that's an over-exaggeration. They can still put up points. But McMurrow, 5th in points for now, 4-2, basically 5-2 because he's playing me this week. I don't really think his record matters, though, because he's not winning that division with the 2 survivors there. So it's really just all about his points for, which is in 5th, but it's still, I think he's within like 10, 20 points of the other teams competing, Wallace, Mikey, and Jalot. So, or just Wallace and Mikey. But I'm not changing my tune. McMurrow has done well in the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to flip on it. I still think this is a selling team. I still think he has time. I mean, it's only week 7. Trade deadline's week 10. So he's got about 3 weeks to make the decision. Knowing McMurrow, he'll probably make it right up at the end. And I'm not going to change my tune on it. I still think it's a selling team. I'm going to stand by what we said the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to be whoever gets that 6th spot is really just going to be the last man standing. I mean, we saw my team drop out early. We're now seeing the Suns kind of start to drop out of that. I think Wallace is a team that will stay, like we talked about last week. He doesn't really have much to sell off. So it's like, what he is right now, he might take a little bit, maybe in 2 weeks he won't have Corey Davis on his team or something, but there's no significant pieces that he can move. So I feel like Wallace is kind of where he is where he is, right? I feel like his floor is that 8th spot. I think his ceiling is, that 6th spot, just because of, I feel like we've always been saying, we're kind of locked in that top 5. But, I feel like teams like McMorrow is obviously a candidate to drop off if he decides to sell all these guys. I think Mikey's kind of in a similar spot to Wallace, where, his core is pretty locked in. I don't really see who he could be selling that could really, affect his team. So I think it will just be, I think we're kind of locked into the 3-man race, and then it's kind of dependent on if McMorrow wants to start selling or not. But I think these are the 3 that we're going to start seeing. But McMorrow, he has these guys, and like you said, we have been kind of, really getting on McMorrow about sell, sell, sell. Your team is old and told, all that stuff. But, I still think that holds true. And
Yeah.
I think you feel the same way based on what you said. But, I think it's more of just, McMorrow, if you're in McMorrow's shoes, you got to kind of look at what's your ceiling and then what's the potential to even reach that. And is it worth chasing, or is it worth kind of getting that head start to make sure you're not left holding the bag on these guys? Because I think he's starting to get a little bit of a scare with that. And for me, that would be enough to scare me off. I'd be selling to these contenders, getting them these running backs. But who knows what the market is even like, out there for that type of stuff. So, maybe it's a little bit easier said than done. At number 6, we'll tie it right in just because I already mentioned his name. We have moving up one spot from last time. That's Mikey, Josh Winsper. Go Tigers. So this is a team that, I feel like they're getting a little bit of traction here. I think that they're a team that, I think that's just a similar spot to McMahon, right? Put up 123.6 last week, 95.46 the week before. But, even going back to the last set of power rankings, week 4, he put up 142.96. So I think when you're looking at it compared to the start of the season where he put up 107 and then had 2 weeks that were 89 and 87, we're starting to see Mikey heat up. Starting to see Josh Winsper maybe take the reins, start setting these lineups, and kind of whipping this team into shape. But I think that both McMorrow and Mikey are two teams that have figured it out in the past few weeks. So I think you can maybe make an argument for them to be flip flopped if you want. But either way, like I said, we're locked into this top 3, or not top 3, but these last 3 fighting for that playoff spot. And I think that Mikey right now has a little bit of an edge, because I think what also helps him is that he's in the weaker division. So at the very least, he has an opportunity to, try and take a divisional lead here, right now. I mean, obviously Gino and the Zits, they are 5-1, but I still think that, that division is wide open. What do you think about Mikey being at number 6, Pete?
Yeah, I think it's where he belongs. He's 6th in points for. He's kind of middle of the pack. He's 500, so I think it's a good spot for him. A lot going on with Mikey's team, though. Hollywood's now on IR, right?
Yep.
Elijah Mitchell's still on IR, but is now dead with Christian McCaffrey there.
Also, he's got Noah Brown starting in the lineup right now,
and Melvin Gordon, because Henderson's on a bye, so Akers also dead, and Henderson takes over that backfield. And then Godwin kind of seemed like he returned to form last week. So it felt like he lost Hollywood, lost Mitchell, got Hendo, got Godwin.
And you also got Russell Wilson, right? He's playing through a lot of pain. It's a real injury, totally real, but he is going to play through it. He's got that Wolverine blood. So, this is a little bit of a beat up team. You never like seeing a team with Noah Brown, in the starting lineup when you're fighting for a playoff spot. But, that's kind of the state of Mikey's team right now. Yeah, I mean, it's not pretty, but right now it's working, right?
I think he should beat you this week, but I don't think it's by any means a wrap. You're in conversation to spoil a win or two, and he could be it this week.
Yeah, I think I have just as good a chance, right? I mean, right now I'm projected to lose by 15, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I could easily see my team still putting up a stinker. I don't even know if Elijah Moore is going to play this week.
Yeah.
But I kind of like my team to start bouncing back. I think Tua provides a little bit of a boost to the slow stroke Kings, and still trying to figure out if I want to start Mac or Davis Mills. But I'd like to play spoiler here. I mean, just looking at his lineup, I mean, I said Elijah Mitchell could put up something. I mean, Melvin Gordon, what the hell's going on with him? So, I mean, him, Noah Brown, those are guys that could put up stinkers as well.
Yeah.
So I think this is a game to watch. I think this could be one of the more interesting games, matchups of the week. You got anything more to say on Mikey's team?
I give him credit. He spoiled Simcoe last week. First one to beat Simcoe. Simcoe put up like 109. I think Mikey had like mid 120s, but first one to take down the man. So.
Yep, good for Mikey, and like I said, it looks like he's starting to kind of figure it out, and
I'm happy for him.
Piece some wins together. Yeah, we always love seeing our boy succeed.
Absolutely.
But all right, at number 5, and this could be another team that's kind of locked into the spot. No movement from the last rankings. We have Gino and the Zits. I don't really know what I don't know what's left to say about them. This is a team that 5-1. Division leaders, so they're locked into that, but they're also, a decent step below these top 4 teams in terms of points for. I think that it's, quite an arms race in that top 4. And then I think, the Zits is kind of where they want to be, right? They're kind of hiding in the murky waters, and then once the playoffs come around, they just grab you by the leg, they drag you right down, and then they smother you. And it's still a competitive team. I mean, Tyreek Hill right now, he's on pace to break Calvin Johnson's receiving record. Debo Samuel is obviously a beast. Geno Smith, uh, that's a vibes guy, right? That's a vibes guy. He had to get Jimmy G out of there. Jonathan Taylor, I do think, was a little bit concerning. It looks like he chose to sit out, in the last game. So I do have some questions about the toughness of the Zits, but still a competitive team. Chris Olave, he's back. He's a beast. Looks like Bowen, starting Kenny Pickett this week as well. Pete, how are you feeling about the Zits? And what do you think about their their long-term outlook for this season, I should say? Where do you see them how do you see them performing weeks 13, 14, 15, and so on?
So eighth in points for, but they're 5-1 and they have a playoff spot because they are leading the division by two wins over Mikey. Do you see a future here where it's only 2 wins? We're not even halfway through the season. Or I guess we're halfway through the regular fantasy season now. Is there a future where maybe Mikey takes over the division and Bones points forward doesn't compete with those other teams competing for the other playoff spot?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking at the schedule right now. He is going against Lamar and the Shits this week. It's projected to be a close one. And, I feel like that's kind of exactly where they're at, right? He's predicted to lose to them, but it's also only predicted to be a 5-point game. And, or, yeah, 5-point game. But, then that next week he has Waukesha. And then he's got a little bit of a tough stretch, right? He's got 2 pins. He's got I Love My Mom. He's got Big Brain. And then he's got the head-to-head with Mikey. So that could be a stretch where all of a sudden 4 weeks from now it's tied up. Maybe Mikey has a lead. Maybe it's a one game lead or something. That is a tough stretch. So, you could be right where all of a sudden we blink and it's a much closer race than we thought. And all of a sudden, we're looking at, the Zits in a much different light because all of a sudden they're out of the playoffs. They're back in the lottery. And then we're seeing these points for, and, who knows what that does to their pick. That could be that's something that maybe we should put a pin in and come back to in a few weeks because we could be looking back and saying, holy shit, we actually called this.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. I mean, we were preaching these 5 teams were locked in the playoffs since the first week of the season, but I definitely think put a pin in it, something to keep an eye on. But the thing about the Zits, you write slander to Geno and the Zits, and they don't write back. So
yeah, I mean, just looking at this week, right? He's going against Simcoe. Mikey's going against me. That right there, 1 win, 1 loss. All of a sudden, we could be, that just cuts the lead in half. So it could happen even sooner than we think. But yeah, something to keep an eye on. All right, moving forward, we got number 4, moving back 1 spot from the last rankings. We have Big Brain LLC. Pete, what do you think about Big Brain right now?
this one stuck out to me. I agree with the power rankings all 4, but Big Brain at 4 is interesting. I mean, they're 3rd in points for behind Vibers and 2 pins, but they've been top 3 in scoring last 3 weeks in the league. The weekly top report I'm talking about, top 3 in scoring the last 3 weeks. This running back stable is absolutely absurd now that Eckler has come alive out of nowhere.
Yep.
Down the road, they're going to have Amari Cooper getting balls from Deshaun. So, I think they're a very, very strong 4 team in this power rankings. I know that top 3 is tough to crack, but it just feels like they're a better team than 4th, even though that may be the right spot for them.
Yeah, pretty much just came down to splitting hairs, right? I mean, they got 771.72 points for 2 pins. They are 795.02. So I had to give 2 pins the boost there. But I also just, looking at the divisions right now, it's 4-2, 4-2 at the top of LeBron haters. Big Brain is a game back in their division. So, when it comes down to it, somebody has to be in that 4th spot. I just had to give a little bit more love to 2 pins just because of their situation. But yeah, it's no disrespect to Big Brain. I think they're pretty much just as good as any of these top 4 teams. But, of course, somebody had to be number 4. Yeah, it will be interesting to see, like you said. I mean, McCaffrey could give it a little bit of a boost. Amari could be getting a boost in a few weeks. And all of a sudden we could be really looking at this and being like, holy shit, Big Brain's back. I do have my concerns about quarterback because, I don't know. you always are hesitant to kind of write off the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, but this just it doesn't feel like a team that's going to get right. I mean, I feel like we usually see those Rodgers teams get right early in the year. They kind of have that bad first week, and then all of a sudden they come back and, completely put it together. It looked like we had that, right? They lost in week 1, came back, covered as big favorites against Chicago, and then they just have not looked good since. I mean, they did beat Tampa, but it's just been, bad games. I mean, that Tampa game was not good on either side. It was just one of those where two shitty teams were playing and one of them had to come out as a winner. But of course, we all saw them almost lose to New England with Hoyer and then Zappy, at Lambeau. Then they went across the pond, lost to the Giants, and they come back, lose to the Jets at home. You got Sauce Gardner wearing the cheese head, all types of dramatics there. But they do not look like a good team. And, Rodgers, he just doesn't have that. I mean, obviously Dobbs was having a very good start to the rookie season. It feels like he's cooled off a little bit, but he's still, he's still finding his footing. I think we're maybe kind of seeing what he projected to be as a pro, where it's just, a guy that you can rely on off your bench. If you need him in a bye week in a pinch, he can fill in, always capable of popping off for a big game, maybe a little more touchdown dependent than you'd like to see just from a fantasy standpoint. But I mean, it's just like Lazard, he's doing all right. The running backs, they aren't doing too great. That defense is playing well, but it's like, this just doesn't feel like a good team. And I don't really see Rodgers and, returning to that elite MVP level from a fantasy point perspective. And then, Jimmy Garoppolo is just, sexy in real life, not sexy in a fantasy lineup. So, you got Garoppolo, you got Tannehill. They went after Heineke. I don't know why. You got, I don't know. I don't know why they needed the fourth quarterback. I don't know who they were trying to prevent from getting him.
I try not to judge how people spend their fab. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who they're trying to prevent for getting him, but they're now carrying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks on their roster. 1, 2, 3 of them are backups. Heineke will be their 4th backup, assuming Wentz reclaims the job whenever he comes back. So it's interesting roster construction. We always have our questions about Big Brain's bench. They do have must-start Myers back on the bench. So they're always, it always feels like they're an injury away, but it feels like that injury, I don't know. I mean, what is it going to happen? I don't know. I mean, they're completely healthy. They're putting up these massive numbers. So, they're just as good as anybody else in this top 4. But, when you're splitting hairs and you gotta put somebody there, they unfortunately fell there.
I think, I mean, they could be a perfect team to go after a guy like Lockett. Like, you're not going to pay through the roof for him, and it's going to give you some depth that you don't have at wide receiver. So, like, I just don't see Big Brain making a move like that. But that's what I envision for a guy like Lockett.
Yeah, because like they're not a team that has to make a big move, right? Like,
they don't have to do anything.
They're sitting on these 24 firsts. They got some seconds as well. They got their 25 picks and a few extras thrown in. But it's like, yeah, I mean, like their studs are locked in. It's like if they want to look for depth to really have a kind of pay that premium for some good insurance on these guys, then sure, they could go out and do that. Because at the end of the day, right? I mean, if you have top 10 players of their positions, then you got their backups are top 15, then it's like, all right, then who the fuck cares, right? I mean, you know who you're going to start, and then God forbid if an injury does happen, that you're just going to plug that guy in, and you're not starting a guy that's getting 7 points a week. You're starting a guy that's still getting double-digit points. So, I think I'd like to see Big Brain, start getting a little active leading up to this trade deadline. If they want to try and make that push. But I think this is kind of where Big Brain wants to be, right? We've seen them flop as teams getting that first round bye. Maybe they just got to keep that momentum rolling, go right into the playoffs, playing that wild card round, and not take that week off. So I kind of like Big Brain in this spot actually, and maybe they should too. Flip-flopping with them from the last rankings at number 3. So moving up 1 spot, we do have Team 2 Pins. As you had mentioned before, this is a team that could be on upset alert, this week. They got all these guys. I know they're actively searching for some answers at running back. I think they were hoping to rely on Ramondre, but it also looks like Dame Harris is coming back. We've talked about it plenty on the show, in episodes past where, starting 2 running backs in the same backfield, it really feels like you're capping your upside compared to if you were doing it with 2 wide receivers on the same team. They are starting Paris Campbell this week. They are going back to Kenyon Drake this week. They did start Taysom Hill. It didn't explode, but it did have that touchdown. And then of course, Ayuk, Kittle, Herbert, Mahomes, Jamar Chase. That floor is always so scary with them. But two pins, they're still putting up massive numbers. I believe they are. Are they second in points for? I think they're above Simcoe, right?
Second. Yep,
795. Yep,
second.
they're
No,
35
second.
points above Simcoe. So that's also why I ranked them so high too, right? They're
Right.
second in points for. So, that floor just for where they can be seated is already so high. And then, they're still very much in it. They're 4-2. They're tied for that division lead in terms of wins. They obviously lose the tiebreaker to the Vipers, who we'll get to in a second. But all it takes is a couple funky weeks, and like we were talking about in the Gabagool division with the Bowens battling for it at the top. All of a sudden, you could blink, and in 2 weeks, all it takes is one loss. All of a sudden, two pins is on top. So still a very scary team. All teams in this top four are horrifying. I like the way two pins looks, but of course, this week is going to be a good test of their depth. That's always something we talk about in this league. Just walking on eggshells, but still a scary team with that floor. And I think that I expect them to be active, looking for some more running backs before the deadline. How are you feeling about two pins right now?
I'm putting two pins on the hot seat. I'm putting two pins on the hot seat. I mentioned it before, and you just mentioned it again. Devonta Smith, Diggs Cup on a bye this week against Mikey. Sneaky spot to lose. Next week, Mahomes and Herbert both on a bye.
Oh boy.
And no third quarterback on their roster.
Yep.
So, I mean, you just said it. 2 funky weeks could really shake things up. And looking at their running back situation, sure, they look like they start. I mean, they got Kenyon Drake in the starting lineup right now. Kenyon Drake and Mondre with Harris on the bench. So they're going to be playing that Harris-Mondre game, who to start. Gibson's dead. They got no one else. So I see problems at running back. I see wide receivers on bye weeks this week. And I see both quarterbacks and no other quarterback on his roster next week. I think he might just bite that bullet. Speaking about Fab, he could have been a guy that goes after Taylor Heineke, right? That might have been a good move, but
yeah, especially because Heineke's going to be starting for the next few weeks at least.
And you've known Herbert and Mahomes have had a same bye week the whole season.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The two pins, second in points for, great season so far, defending champs, but I think I got him on the hot seat right now.
Yeah, and that's a good point you're bringing up about missing those two, because it's not only are they looking at a loss just from that, but that could also be a huge hit, and it will be a huge hit to their points for. So, I mean, right now I'm looking, and obviously they don't have guys like Diggs and Smith back in the lineup, but right now they're projected 46.92 points next week. Smith and Diggs are not going to be giving them 50 points and getting them back up to 100 there. So, they're going to take a big hit in 2 weeks, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how things start to shake out with those standings. But I mean, I do think that although they are tied for that division lead just by record, Vipers, and like I said, we'll get to them in a second, but they do just that is such a powerful team that that points for tiebreaker is going to be tough. So they're going to need some tough breaks, and these are not games that they can really afford to be losing.
Oh, and shout out my Middle Eastern brother, Joseph Hanin, showing his face
coming back in the chat. It was good to see.
Showing his face in the league chat, put a smile on my face. Masalami, my brother.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, moving down a spot after suffering their first loss, we have Lamar and the Shits. Not too much to take away from this team. I mean, a little bit of they cooled off a little bit in the last 2 weeks. 109, 102. Of course, their first loss last week to Mikey Bowen, of all people. But still a very strong team. Lamar, Saquon, Josh Jacobs coming back from the bye week. After a explosion of 2 weeks, 32 points, 27.8 points leading into the bye. Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins is back, getting absolutely peppered with targets. 10 receptions on 14 targets, 103 yards. Still a strong team. Jalen Hurts on a bye this week. Got to start sneaky Matt Ryan. Always worth pointing out, J.K. Dobbins not doing anything. He traded the world for him. Keenan Allen, Brian Robinson got shot and came back faster than him. DJ Moore, a little bit stinky. Adam Thielen on a bye. Kyle Pitts, horrendous. But still a strong team nonetheless. Right now, I don't know what types of movies looking to make. I don't know what, obviously you put DJ Moore on the block, put Kyle Pitts on the block. So he's up to something. I know he's on the hunt for, maybe some top tier tight end talent, just coming from some of my sources around the league. But just a little step back, minor bump in the road. I think they're going to bounce back. Maybe not this week with Jalen Hurts on a bye. They could still get that win, of course, but still a strong team putting up a bunch of points. Does have the division lead. Number 2, Lamar on the shits. Pete, how are you feeling about that?
Simcoe said it himself. I think there's a Lamar and the shits for the reason because they are liable to be shit sometimes. Definitely seen the regression from him. Dropped from points or to 4th in points for. Dropped his first game to Mikey, like you said, under 10, 110 the last 2 weeks. Small signs of regression here. Small signs of regression. Bright spot, they did get Nuke back tonight, who looked 100% all the way back. Was about a touchdown away from an elite game. I think he had over 100 yards on like probably 8 to 10 catches probably.
10 catches.
10 catches. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not worried about Simcoe. Like you said, small, strong team. Who knows? You can even spin zone it and say the regression was good for him because his team doesn't want to bust too early. So we've seen the ceiling from him. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the regression is a good thing. Save some points from your players down the road.
Yep. Hold on. I'm trying to figure something. How many points? One second. Let me just check one thing. 178.16. Before we get to this next team, I just want to get the stat correct. 178.16. There they are. All right. Yeah, that's everything we got to say about Simcoe's team. Still very strong. Got that division lead. Number 1, moving up a spot into that 1 spot. I believe this is where we had the preseason. They are back on their throne. 2 weeks ago, they put up the 4th best week in league history with 178.16 points. This is a team that's getting very hot at a very good time. That is the Occasional Vibers. Week 5, 178.16 points. Week 6, 111.24. Both wins. They're 4-2. Most points in the league. They're atop their division. I guess depth is king right now. The Occasional Vibers, they are number 1. Pete, how do you feel about our number 1 team?
This is the deepest team of all time. The deepest team of all time. I looked at the roster this week prior to this episode. You got Josh Allen, Gabe Davis, AJ Brown on bye. You got Cam Akers dead. You got Javonte on IR, and they're still projected 124 points this week. First in points for by 30 points, which is a mile after this 7 weeks. So, I mean, deepest team of all time, clear number 1. I don't see how you can dispute it.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't even have any comments for them. I mean, I feel like you kind of covered it all. They're, projected, they're still up there with the top teams in terms of projections this week, and they got some of their best players on the bench, including one of the best quarterbacks in the league, one of the best receivers in the league. I mean, this is a team that has Terry McLaurin just constantly riding the bench. It's a guy that would be starting for almost every other team in this league. So, it's just an unbelievably strong team. The injuries haven't seemed to matter much. The fact that, Williams is out, the fact that Akers,
dead.
Who the hell knows what's going on with him. But either way, unbelievable. What are they, over 800 points, right?
Yeah.
Yep. 823.72 points. I mean, that's almost 30 points above, second place, 2 pins. So, it's just crazy what we're seeing. That 178 was just absolutely insane. Unbelievable team. They seem to have it kind of figured out. And hopefully that's a team that that ownership stays in place for a very long time. We'll leave it at that. Pete, you got anything else to say before I go back over these top 12?
No, that feels good for me. Let's run it.
All right, so start at 12 as always, and then going down to 1, we got Slippery Pete, Waukesha, the Slow Stroke Kings, the Most Athletic Sons, I Love My Mom, Carson Wentz, Go Tigers, Gino and the Zits, Big Brain LLC, 2 Pins, Lamar and the Shits, and the Occasional Vibers. And all right, I guess we can leave it at that. Pete, you got anything else you got to add?
That's gonna do it.
Yep. All right, so we'll be back next week. I guess maybe we'll work on a guest. I think we got some segments planned. I think we got a performance that'll be on the way. But besides that, we will be back next week. All right, let me stop.